Call to order, please.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll begin this meeting of Council acknowledging that the County of Prince Edward is on traditional land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. We thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years, and we recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this land. Today, the County of Prince Edward is still home to many First Nations and Métis people, and we're grateful to have an opportunity to meet here, work, and continue stewardship of this land. On behalf of members of Council and our municipal staff and myself, I'd like to welcome all the guests in the audience and streaming this meeting at home to this meeting of Council. Tonight's agenda lists all the items before Council for consideration. The recommended motions on tonight's agenda are shown in boldface. Copies of the agenda are provided on the landing and are also posted on our website. This meeting is being live streamed, and any participation in the meeting proceedings will become part of the public record. The recording from the meeting will be published on the county's website immediately and can be viewed by selecting the streaming tab on the county's homepage at thecounty.ca. At this meeting, any person in the audience may speak to any item on the agenda for 3 minutes. Under agenda item 8, I will be asking for comments from the audience. Please raise your hand at that time and indicate which agenda item you wish to address. The maximum time allotted for comments is 30 minutes. Your name will be included in the council minutes and form part of the public record posted to the county's website. We request that you provide a written copy of your remarks to the clerk for the record. When you speak, please stand at the podium, turn on the microphone, and provide your full name and address your comments to the chair. Following your deputation, there may be questions from members of council, so please remain at the podium to respond. There's also a brochure on the landing and posted on our website with information for deputations. Agenda item 10 contains a report of the Committee of the Whole meeting of October 24th, 2019 at 1 p.m. The Committee of the Whole report will be approved by a single motion unless an item is pulled by a member of council for a separate discussion and vote. If an item is pulled for discussion, it can be approved, amended, deferred, or otherwise changed by council. Bylaws listed on this agenda provide the full force of law to previous decisions of council. Any matter decided today by either resolution or bylaw is final and cannot be revisited by council until 4 regular meetings have expired without a 2/3 majority vote. As a matter of housekeeping, to exit the building in the event of fire, please use the stairs outside the door of this chamber or the stairs off the committee room to the left. Please do not use the elevator, and please turn off or mute your cell phones. Now, if we could have a mover and a seconder to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Forrester and Councillor St. Jean, if you could read that, please.
Mayor, this is a Forrester St. Jean motion that the agenda for the council meeting of November 12, 2019 be confirmed.
Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Does anybody have anything to declare? Seeing nothing, that moves us to announcements. Does anybody have an announcement? Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Just a pretty happy announcement. I was recently informed last week that the grape growers of Ontario, along with the Honourable Speaker of the Legislature and MPP for Wellington Halton Hills, Ted Arnott, hosted an annual wine tasting event at Queen's Park. It was a bit of a contest, and the MPPs and the grape growers of Ontario are pleased to announce that they've chosen the official wines of the Ontario Legislature and the Assembly for 2020, and the official red wine for the Provincial Legislature for 2020 is going to be Three Dog Winery's 2017 Doghouse Red, which was chosen in a competition, at a tasting competition. So I just wanted to make that announcement. It was interesting that the owners of Three Dog Winery, Sasha and John Square, their only quote in the process was, quote, that their 3 rescue dogs and team at Three Dog Winery are very proud and honored to have our wines selected by the Ontario Legislature to be their house red, end of quote. And I'm sure that all of us on council are also proud of that accomplishment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other announcements? Okay, that'll move us to item 6, adoption of minutes. Item 6.1. If we could have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Maynard, Councillor Forrester. Questions, comments? We'll read it and then we'll, sorry.
Maynard, Forrester, motion that the council minutes from the meeting held on October 22nd, 2019 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor? That carries. Item 6.2, if we could have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Harper.
That the
Bailey.
Planning Public Council meeting, or council minutes from the meeting held on October 16, 2019 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Questions? All those in favor? That carries. Moves us to item 6.3, special council minutes. Could have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Margetson, seconded by Councillor Nyman.
Margetson
Questions?
Nyman motion that the special council minutes from the meeting held on November 4th, 2019 be adopted as presented.
Questions, comments? All those in favor? That carries. Moves us to item 6.4. Mover and seconder, Councillor St. Jean and Councillor Forrester.
Thank you, Your Worship. St. Jean Forrester motion that the Special Planning Public Council minutes from the meeting held on October 24th, 2019 be adopted as presented. Thank
you. Any questions? Councillor Bailey.
Madam Clerk, one small error. Page 59 specifies Councillor Nyman saying stray lagging. Should be stray lighting.
I believe there's another typo on that page that
I missed that one.
Madam Clerk has caught. Okay, all those in favor? That carries. Moves us to item 6.5. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Roberts, Councillor McMahon. If you could read that, please.
This is a Roberts McMahon motion that the Special Planning Public Council minutes from the meeting held on October 28, 2019 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Questions? All those in favor? And that carries. Item 7, deputations, we have none. That will move us to comments from the audience on items on the agenda. Does anybody in the audience have anything they would like to speak to? Yes, please. If you could come to the podium, turn on the microphone, and please state your name for the clerk.
My name is Lorraine Weiss. I live at 2083 County Road 1 in Bloomfield, and I'd like to speak to the McAvoy application that is up for approval tonight. I just wanted to make a few points because I've been at the other meetings. This property is a farm, and at any point in time after the McAvoys purchased a farm, they were able to build a home to raise their family. The issue we as neighbors are raising concerns about is the proposed multiple lots. The template is in place for severance conditions, and those conditions have to be met by all applicants. In this case, legitimate concerns about water were raised. An additional condition was added, as would be expected by a responsible municipal government. These conditions the McAvoys have agreed to adhere to are not, as suggested, above and beyond, but the result of responsible counsel and property owner. A property owner is granted rezoning and a severance. The council should not be afraid to question the suitability of severance applications. Consider the concerns presented and do not be afraid to make changes that will set precedents for the benefit of the community. I am disappointed to see from other applications put before the council that if you check the boxes of the planning department's severance application, it is just about a sure thing the council will vote to approve the severances. I will not be surprised when this application is approved. However, I will just be disappointed if this application gets unanimous approval. This property was a farm, as are many of the properties I've seen come before council for rezoning and severance. The council and the citizens have a responsibility to preserve the culture of the county. Thank you.
Are there any questions from members of council? Any questions? Thank you very much. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to?
Speak to the Bethesda Road severance. Is this the time?
Okay, ma'am, if you could, if you want to speak to that, you're more than welcome to. If you could just provide your name for the clerk, and you've got 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Dee Hazel. I live in Hillier. Council, Mayor, members of the public. I spoke to Council on October the 22nd regarding the Bethesda Road building severance applications, and I thank you for that opportunity. There were a couple more points I would like to make. To summarize my last presentation, 3 years ago, this 60-acre parcel was sold and consisted of 2 portions bisected by a road, each portion of about 30 acres apiece. This year, a for sale sign went up on one side of the road, and according to the neighbor, the same day the sold sticker was put on the for sale sign, 2 more for sale signs appeared on both sides of the road. And now there are plans for 5 houses to be built. Land is a limited resource, generally goes up in value over time. This purchase and subsequent sale, now I know about the legalities, it sounds like speculation. I'm not sure whether it's legal or not. I'm sure it is, otherwise it wouldn't have happened, but it certainly isn't ethical. Land is not a possession like other belongings. And to quote an old bumper sticker of mine, we do not own the earth owns us. When we own the land, we are caretakers of the land. And in the land thing at the beginning, when you mentioned the stewardship, the continued stewardship of the land, I'm suggesting that that's not happening. As I mentioned last time, there should never have been an application allowed for so many severances from one piece of land. When I encountered a similar scene on my road some time ago, I was told by the planner of the time that anything over 2 buildings requires a plan of subdivision, and one of my questions is, has this rule changed? We do not need to build as fast as we can. We will have growth for a very long time. We need to have slow and thoughtful growth in our rural areas. The rural areas of Prince Edward County are one of the unique and special characteristics that are cited in 2.3.3 of the official plan. Quote, in anticipating the pressures for growth, careful planning and decision-making will ensure that the unique and special characteristics of the county are not lost in order to accommodate growth pressure. I suggest we are losing much to growth pressure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members of council? No? Thank you very much. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak to the mayor? Sir.
Thanks.
Just provide your name for the clerk and that.
My name is Jake LaRose. Live at 83 McHill Road. I'm interested in speaking about agenda item 9.4, if I've got that right. The one that was just spoken on, 789 Bethesda Road. Anyways, you get where I'm going. I guess I still remain concerned about the proposed houses there. I'm not against development. People need places to live, and to me that's an important thing. I guess the part that I'm still concerned about is, you know, I just don't think that well tests conducted any time in the next 10 months are reflective of the period that we all know, September, October, August as well, when there's water scarcity. To me, that's a bottleneck we all experience. And I do acknowledge that the well tests was a great idea. I just, I don't think they're going to tell you what you need to know with 3 feet of soil conducted when we just had 2 really big rains. You know, I don't believe it's fair to build houses without adequate water to live. And up and down our road for those 3 to 4 months, water haulage is a fact of life. That's where people get their water. Wells go dry. So, you know, I just, if this density of development happened up and down the road, I just, you know, I just can't see it being supported. There's not adequate water there to do it. That's how I feel. Anyways, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from members of council? No, seeing none, thank you very much. Is there anybody else?
Yes.
That would like to speak? Sir.
It's already on. Thank you. Yes, it's on 789 Bethesda Road as well. Through the chair to council, my name is Milt Dolmage. I've sent an email to all councillors and the mayor. I've also given a copy to the planning department and the clerk on Wednesday, November 6th. I trust you've all received it and had a chance to read through it. My concern has been the same from the start. The concern is the quantity of well water for the existing wells that are nearby the properties in question. As I have stated, the provision for a hydrogeological test, which monitors wells while pump-out tests are being done on the new holes, is a welcome one. However, as has been pointed out to me, I'm not an expert on groundwater sources, but I am a realist. I believe that if holes have been dug and tests performed when we met here on October 16th, the results would have been very different than from now till Christmas time. We've had a couple of record rainfalls in the last 3 weeks, and wells have come back up. I, for one, am very happy about that, but I'm still very concerned about what will happen next fall. If council votes to accept these applications as written and allow 5 new homes of 5 new wells, and it will be for both sides of the property, it will send a message to other developers that it's a good idea to buy up some farmland, chop it into smaller building lots, and put new homes on them to sell to people with lots of money. If this happens, I forecast that not too far down the road, these new homeowners will all have half-ton trucks to haul their water tanks to get them through the dry season. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a slippery slope. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I'll be back here November 20th when the other half of this once single property is discussed.
Questions? Questions from members of council? No. Thank you very much, Mel. And is there anybody else? Brendan.
Thank you.
I think you know the drill.
Not council, surprisingly, actually. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm here on to speak to item 9.4 and 9.8. Regarding item 9.4, I just wanted to just reaffirm that I've gone over the conditions with the applicant, and they are in agreement. They're in agreement with the condition, the new condition that was brought forth regarding the wells, the hydrogeological report. This is consistent with item 9.6 on the agenda as well, the wording. What we're looking at doing, or what planning has suggested, is that the scope and the study will be conducted by a licensed hydrogeologist. And so we're okay with that, and we understand that there's concern around that, and we'll put it forward to a hydrogeologist to monitor these wells and study them. If there's a positive outcome, fine. If there's a negative outcome, that's also a reality that we would have to deal with. So regarding item 9.8, A. Hillier Vineyard, you may recall that was brought forward at last meeting as well and was referred. I've gone through the conditions again with the applicant. Condition 6 is still in the application, and that condition referred to the lot drainage plan. We're still in a disagreement with having that condition within this application. The reason being, I believe the answer from staff previously was that this is a standard condition that is applied to all severances. Sometimes certain conditions aren't appropriate, in my opinion, for certain applications. And in this particular one, due to the sheer lot size, we're talking agricultural lots, coming up with a building envelope, doing a lot drainage plan, it just seems like it's a task that would have to potentially be changed down the road if someone did go to build a house and we didn't pick the appropriate spot on these 100-acre lots. And so I feel like the lot drainage plan should be addressed at the building permit stage and not at this point in time. And then I believe we also discussed the entrance. We're in agreement. We've read the supplementary report provided by staff and are in agreement regarding the existing entrance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Roberts.
Hi, Brendan. Two questions. As a planner, conceptually, wouldn't we prefer to concentrate growth in urban areas rather than in rural areas? That's the first question.
Sure. So, and again, as a planner, when you're reviewing applications, you review the policy framework. And so when you're reviewing the policy framework, you go to the provincial policy statement, and then you go down to the official plan, and then you go down and look at review the zoning bylaws. The current official plan does direct development, especially high-density development, to urban areas. The rural policies of the plan allow for limited development in rural areas. And what that means is each lot can be severed post-1998 twice with one retained. That's what's happening here. And so the current policies are supporting that. I understand the discussion around fragmentation of farmlands. And I think if we're going to take that approach and reevaluate it, it's got to be done at a policy level. And that needs to be done through the official plan review. Because currently what's happening is people come into the planning office and they say, look, we have this piece of property. What do we need to do to sever it? And so you go through a number of steps with planning to get to this particular point. And this policy document is something that's been approved by council. And so if we're going to change that, then we need to do it at a policy level. And I think that's, if we're going to have that discussion, that's where it needs to happen.
Second question.
Thanks, Brendan. What's your perspective on the notion of, that we've heard many times here, that if we were really going to get an accurate test of the threshold with regard to water supply, that those tests would be done sort of August to October, and that's the only way we're really going to understand what is sustainable in this area?
Well, what I would say to that is I'm not an expert. I don't think anyone here is an expert. What this condition does now is it puts the onus on the hydrogeologist to scope it. If that's what the hydrogeologist suggests, then that's what they would suggest. But I would be reluctant to put any sort of notion forward that I know. And so what this condition does is it puts the ability for the hydrogeologist to scope that study.
Any other questions? Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. Thank you, Brendan. On 9.8, from a planning perspective, so the condition is still in there under number 7 to obtain an entrance permit and civic address. In your opinion, how does what was granted as a field entrance then transform itself into a perceived right to have a commercial type entrance in the same location, seeing as they're quite different things?
I don't think that we're suggesting there's a right. I don't know if you've been to the site or if you've looked at some of the photos. There was a permit issued, and there was significant work done. I assume that work was done within the scope of the permit. And so to move, what we're suggesting is to move that particular entrance, and that entrance doesn't just relate to where it connects to the road, it also relates to all the material that was brought in that goes all the way back to the main buildings. The buildings were designed around this entrance. To move that, well, first of all, there'd be an environmental impact, but also just practically speaking, what what would the benefit be? I know the point was that there was a study or council is looking at these higher class roads, but I don't believe there's any sort of policies that have come out of that yet. And so I guess at this point, it's existing. It's being used for the current use, which is a farm winery processing building. And there's been no adverse impacts that have been noted to this point.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay. Anybody, are there any other members of the audience that want to speak? No? Okay. If we could have a mover and a seconder to accept the 5 comments from members of the audience, please. Councillor Prinson, seconded by Councillor Forrester.
Want to make something up?
Yeah.
Prince and Forrester motion that we now accept the comments from the audience.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that carries. That moves us to item number 9, items for consideration, and item number 9.1. If we could have a mover and a seconder for this, please. This for Picton. Perhaps Councillor St. Jean, I'll hand this one to you. Mover and if we could have a seconder, Councillor Harper. 9.1.
Yes. Thank you, Your Worship. St. Jean Harper motion that the resignation by Nancy Kish, Gail Lynch, and Guy Trudeau from the Picton Ward Recreation Committee be received.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I'm seeing none. Okay, all those in favor? That carries. Moves us to item number 9.2. Sophiasburg Ward, Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Nyman.
This is a Roberts-Nyman motion that the resignation of Mike Farrell and Lou Paradis from the Sophiasburg Ward Recreation Committee be received.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Bolick.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just perhaps, I don't know if staff knows or anyone, that's 5 people that have resigned from recreation committees. Is there an issue, or is this just people finding other things that they have to do?
I think we'll hand that over to, I guess, our acting CAO. Or do we have any background?
Your Worship, I have no insight as to why these people chose to resign. So,
no, Councillor Roberts.
I can speak to Sophiasburg. Both Mike Farrell and Lou Paradis have larger jobs than they had when they first came on the Recreation Committee. And so they're both in a situation where there's only so many hours in a day.
Regrettably, that seems to be what happens, and people just find other things that occupy their time. So, okay, we'll vote on that. All those in favor? That carries. Moves us to item 9.3. We could have a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Harper, seconded by Councillor Margetson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a Harper Margetson motion that the Environmental Advisory Committee terms of reference as circulated be approved, and that the bylaw to establish and approve the Environmental Advisory Committee terms of reference as listed on the agenda be enacted.
Okay, questions, comments? Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. A question to staff. When will the 3 councillors for this committee be selected, and when do we predict or anticipate that this committee will start to actually work?
Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, We will make the selection at the December 17th council meeting, with the first meeting of the Environmental Advisory Committee being in January of the new year. As soon as this is approved tonight, we'll be ready to put the ad out to recruit members from the public, and we will ensure to include, as you all suggested, resumes and cover letters to be attached with the application, and hopefully we get lots of applicants and you guys make your decisions on who you'd like on the committee at the December 17th meeting.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor? Now that carries. Moves us to item 9.4. If we could have a mover and a seconder for this, please. I know, everybody's looked at it and said, boy, that's a lot of reading.
Bill wants it. He's Feisberg.
Councillor Roberts.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Prinzen.
This is a Roberts-Prinzen motion that the report of the Development Services dated October 16, 2019 regarding consent files number B44-19 and B45-19 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z45-19 be received, that the consent files number B44-19 and B45-19 2693773 Ontario Inc. for lands located in Part Lot 3, Plan 2, Gore B, Part 1, 47R 8796, Ward 6, Sophiasburg, be approved subject to the following conditions. And those are conditions 1 through 12, and that zoning amendment file Z 45-19 2693773 Ontario Inc. for lands located in Part Lot 3, Plan 2, Gore B, Part 1, 47R 8796, Ward 6, Sophiasburg, be approved.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the audience? Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not happy with these severances. I have a couple of issues. One is the water issue, which I know the residents in that area have been very vocal about, and I too have grave concerns when you're essentially putting a five-house subdivision on a rural road, all within stone's throw of each other. I don't agree with that. I fully understand that there is a natural severance created by Bethesda Road. I don't agree with it. I don't like it, and therefore I will not support this application.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I know we don't have a hydrogeologist here, but I'm going to ask staff if they can speak to how do the pump tests and the monitoring of the drawdown take into account seasonal fluctuations, especially when we're dealing with dug wells that are largely dependent on surface water. So it would be very different than if these were deep drilled wells. So if somebody could take a shot at that, and how drainage plans might affect the surface water would be the second part of that question.
Is this over to you, Paul?
I guess so.
Okay.
I'll take a crack at it through you, through the Mayor, Council. The excuse me. We would be very dependent on the hydrogeologist for determining how those tests are done and done adequately to ascertain the quantities throughout the year. Some of the options might be to take a look at well records in the area and see what the static levels are at the time of that drilling, which may be during the dry periods of the year, etc. So there's different things that they can do to infer what the static level will be during the dry times of the season. But again, I'm not an expert, so I would really rely on the qualified hydrogeologist to make that determination. I do believe that they are generally in the practice of asking people to drill their wells during the drier times of the season as well. So, but again, it's going to be up to that person. And in terms of the second part of your question, how do drainage plans for new wells? It probably wouldn't affect it, because since Walkerton and amendments to the regulations 903 under Ontario Water Resources Act, the amount of casing now as a minimum, I believe, is 100 feet for a drilled well. And that was to ensure that there wasn't an interference between surface conditions and the point of intake of that water. And that construction standard involves grouting around the casing as well. So they've made some significant efforts to design a new well to avoid impact by surface drainage. How that altered surface drainage may impact adjacent wells that are older wells, i.e. dug wells that don't have casing. As long as the lots are large enough, there generally shouldn't be an impact. It also depends on the geology and a lot of other variables, of course, that would take analysis to conclude an answer to that, and it has to be done on a case-by-case basis. So it all depends on the soil, depth of soil, the geology, the type of geology, whether it's fractured or not, things like that. So it would have to be done on a site-specific basis.
Any other questions? Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Paul, this question's for you. You know, I'm reading this over, and it's come a couple times. And I know you've recommended approval. And I guess my question, and it'll be moving forward, is how do we slow this down or stop this? Yeah, I've never been a big one. Like, I know there's been a lot of pressure on councils over the years. We need a lot of papers that we need growth, and this is going to solve all our problems. I've never been a believer in that. I spoke about it several times. At what point do we look at this and make changes to our official plan before we devastate our rural countryside even more than we already have? You know, we've all seen it everywhere we go. There's lots divided up, new houses in the middle of the countryside, and it just is going on and on. And a lot of it is there's land being bought up just on speculation, on hoping that the costs are going to keep on going up. So I guess my question is, if it was council's desire, what would we have to do to slow this down?
Through the mayor, staff will be bring forward the draft official plan. There is a draft report 80% complete by the policy planner, so we're close to getting it before council, and I'm afraid I don't have a timeline when I think it will be before council. I'm hopeful of January, but there are some outstanding tasks, one of which is looking at some policy options on the consent side of things. So I think when we bring forward the draft official plan, there can be some policy options in response to some of these concerns that we've been hearing.
Okay, and just a quick follow-up, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
And knowing that, and I do realize that's coming forward, if we start turning down these applications, and we talked about this before, when you approve it, the planning staff approves it, could we defend this, turning this application down? Or would we have a good chance of defending that?
You're referring to?
I'm looking at this application right there. You know, Councillor St. Jean said he wasn't going to support it. Well, we all didn't support this. I know the path we're going to go down. Can we defend that decision? Can council defend it, or could our lawyers defend it for us?
I don't know that that's a question the planner can necessarily answer. Councillor.
Your Worship, I believe council had asked this question of the solicitor, and you received a reply some time ago. I'm not sure the full breadth of it is worth, or could be stated in open session, but you'll be hearing from him shortly. It is very difficult to find support if staff is recommending a proposal. Your staff obviously can't attend to the hearing in opposition of itself, so it becomes very difficult.
Okay.
And I'd just like to follow up a little more on that, because, and I knew that was the answer. But we get a lot of people who come to council for the first time, they don't know that answer. And I think the only way we're going to start making these changes if during the next official plan review, council actually takes steps, because right now we sort of have our hands tied because we've created this situation. maybe we can't fix it right now, but I think we seriously have to look at it moving forward. And I already knew somebody was going to say that. I'm glad you did, Herbert. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple questions, if I could. Just in the report, it says Class 0 soil. I thought the soils were 1 to 6. Can you just explain that?
Through the Mayor, Class 0 stands for organic, so that means it's probably a wetland feature.
Okay. So a couple questions. The one is about the plan of subdivision. So why are we not asking for that here with 5 houses in the one area? I mean, to me, it seems like 5 houses in a concentrated area. There should be more than just a simple severance.
Yeah, through the Mayor, we're dealing with 2 separate parcels legally because they are not contiguous. They are separated by that unopened road allowance, or the road allowance rather. So they're really dealing with 2 separate parcels as defined in the official plan and in our zoning. So the policies would apply separately to those individual ownerships. And as we heard from the consultant, Mr. O'Connor, that the policies permit a maximum of 2 new lots for residential purposes since 1998, and these 2 parcels both qualify. They could have brought in applications for 2 lots on one side of the road, and then 6 months later brought in applications for 2 lots on the other side of the road. These aren't joined by the hip, these 2, these 4 lots.
If I could.
Yep.
So we got 2 lots, but 5 houses. I'm a little lost, I guess. I just don't understand how are we getting 3 houses on 1 lot? Is that what we're doing?
Sure. Through the Mayor, again, the applications involve 2 new lots and a retained piece on each original parcel. So we're starting with 2 lots, and now we're adding 2 new lots on each of those 2. So that's giving us the number that you see in the report.
Okay. I have a question of, and this may have been answered at one of the previous meetings, just who is 289-3773 Ontario? Do we? Do we know?
Your Worship, on page 86, the Conservation Authority's permit or review indicates.
Okay. Okay, any other comments?
Yeah.
Questions? Councillor Margetson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Everything that's been said tonight, I've been thinking about all week, and I spoke to the planning consultant, to Paul Walsh, about this, and I come back to Elmer and Barb Norton's comments that we were given at the planning meeting, and I'll just read them. Furthermore, one of our main concerns about this possible development is the principle of it all. We respect Mr. Hymas for what he does in and for the county, and we recognize that he is a very competent and successful businessman, but he is not the one whose quiet rural neighborhood is about to receive a spike in housing. The people that live in our neighborhood love it because it is quiet, secluded, and surrounded by farms and woodlands. If this proposal goes through, Mr. Hymas will walk away having financially benefited by robbing us of the land that has been farmed for generations and by adding neighbors where they are frankly not wanted. So I just want to speak to that because I feel that the planners have approved this and recommended to us as councillors that they feel that it can go ahead, and technically it's sound. It meets all the intents of planning policy right through. So my argument has been, if we're going to change this, let's look at a mechanism to do that. And Paul has assured me that in the official plan, because right now our official plan says we want to preserve the rural character and charm of Prince Edward County. And although that is over a governing policy, it's high up, and when we get down to the technical level, it doesn't, we can't defend anything with that. So I'm hoping this will be the catalyst to review our pending official plan to get the policies that we feel are necessary to preserve this rural character. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I think Brendan and Ernie are right that the place to address rural character is through the official plan, which I will say for the 15th time, I think, I would like to see it happen in my lifetime. It should have been done in the 1990s, so it continues to bewilder me. But that is, you know, whether we like it or not, that is the place where it should be addressed, is through the official plan, given what we have to work with in terms of provincial policy statements and guidance. So in terms of fairness, that's where the rural character should be addressed. I'm still stuck on the water issue, however. The condition indicates that it's a county-assigned hydrologist. Can the county instruct that or direct that hydrologist to meet with the neighbors that are affected with regard to water levels, to take into account in a measurable way historic water levels during the August to October drought pattern, and to, in the delivery of evidence in terms of the findings of that hydrologist, make it clear that those two things have happened?
Reasonable question, Paul.
I think in practice that effort is made to consult with the neighbors. At least that's been my experience. To what extent we can make it mandatory in dealing with a third party, if the third party is not willing, that's another question. So I think ultimately we'll need to rely on that qualified hydrogeologist, and likely the one with Quinte Conservation, who we've developed guidelines for doing small-scale hydrogeology tests in the past, and we've been using it from time to time. So don't recall there being an actual consultation portion to that, but usually the parties become part of that through this process. If they are parties to presenting to council, we know it's a real concern, and then we reach out and touch base with them, as you may note in the McAvoy consent recommendations, where we've specified addresses and well testing for those wells. So I think what we can do is encourage the hydrogeologist to contact the neighbors who have expressed concern.
It's a very, excuse me.
Follow up?
It's a very important answer, Paul, because it's a very important answer. So I want to be clear what you have said to council. My question is, if we are assigning, if county is assigning the hydrologist, in that assignment to the hydrologist is a direction to meet with the neighbors and to take into full account in a documented way the historical drought conditions between August and October. And are we going to do that?
Paul?
I believe we can. I don't want people to start out on an endeavor such as hydrogeological test and the expense that involves without first sitting down and being clear in terms of reference, so that the work goes forward with everyone understanding what work is required. So typically we would take our guidelines and discuss the terms of reference and go forward with that. So I think we would be remiss in not being inclusive in that process of consulting with the parties that have been participating in the process. So I'll say in our terms of reference, we will give direction to the county assigned hydrogeologist to confer with those who've made themselves parties to this process through expressing concerns in this forum. And how we deal with the seasonality, again, I'm going to have to defer to the qualified hydrogeologist. They may be able to rely on secondary data, et cetera. I don't know what approach is considered best practice among hydrogeologists.
Okay. Mr. McCauley.
Yes, Your Worship, just to be absolutely clear on one point I heard just raised, the county is not engaging the hydrogeologist, but the county does have the ability to request certain things be done. The condition number 7 clearly indicates who the people reviewing that assessment are, a peer reviewer of our choice, as well as the Conservation Authority, and that is the means of control. I didn't want to leave council with the thought that this is something that we are undertaking. The applicant is the one that would engage that hydrogeologist.
Right. Okay, any other questions? Sorry? Councillor Maynard.
Thank you for your indulgence. So there's a lot of may and endeavor to, how do we as a council make sure that those, what seems to be the direction of council is included not as a request, but as a council recommendation, that those, especially the seasonal fluctuations, and are taken into account. I mean, we know, right, that that's, you've indicated that we may, or that we'll endeavor to, but how do we enshrine that in a more firm way?
Mr. McCauley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe council inserted or revised condition 7 at its previous meeting, and I suggest that if council wants stronger wording, that's where council would edit again through motion to indicate what terms you would want to see that hydrogeologist undertake. I caution the slippery slope of an appeal if the terms become unreasonable or onerous, but that would be where you would exercise that discretion if you chose.
So we could amend item 7 here, particularly the last sentence.
This would be the place to amend that motion, that condition, if you so chose.
Okay. Councillor Roberts.
With the assistance of staff, if I could get a seconder, I would move a tweaking of that condition to provide council with certainty that consultation with the neighbors affected and the concern with seasonality and drought patterns is part of the go forward here, if there is to be a go forward.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Nyman. Madam Clerk.
So through your worship, for clarity purposes, which condition are we amending and what wording are we adding?
Okay. How would you like the wording put into clause 7?
Your Worship, perhaps if I can take a stab at it, just to clarify what I'd heard. In condition 7, we mentioned a report that is to be prepared and presented by the applicant's hydrogeologist. So at the end of condition 7, you might insert something to the effect that the report include a section detailing consultation with the neighbors. Words to that effect. I would not use the word affected because it may be no affected neighbors, but I think the intent is to have a documented section that indicates consultation has been undertaken.
With the neighbors, yeah. Is that okay?
That addresses the first part, Robert. What about language that speaks to the drought patterns that we're experiencing?
You could add words to that effect, but I know that the nature of hydrogeology itself it's a science that considers seasonality. And if that's what council wants to have clear in the report, you could add that to the same sentence.
I
the report also indicate seasonality impacts or seasonality fluctuations on the tested wells.
Okay.
That would work.
Is that okay? Who, did you have?
Well, I was going to add that part.
Okay.
Because Your Worship, the two neighbors are listed by their municipal address.
Okay.
In the condition 7 already. But it seems the issue of the seasonality, and I discussed this previously with the consultant, that August to October seems like a good time to do a well test and check the neighbors at that time. So if you've addressed that, it's either telling them when they hand in their report they got to do it then, or we put it in this condition. But that's what we want, to make sure we've protected the neighbors in it as best we can by doing this test at the appropriate time. Thank you.
And Your Worship, through the insertion of such wording, you're not relying upon the memory of staff or things over the year-long process that a consent could undertake.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do you have enough to go on?
Through Your Worship, so that condition 7 be amended to read as follows. The owner shall report a well pump test of the new wells constructed on each of the severed lots created through B44-19 and B45-19 while monitoring drawdown rate of the existing wells located at 811 Bethesda Road and 822 Bethesda Road. The drawdown rate of the studied wells shall be demonstrated to have no adverse impacts, including seasonality, to the satisfaction of the hydrogeologist of Quinte Conservation Authority or other county-assigned hydrogeologist, and that the report includes a section regarding consultation with the neighbors.
We happy with that? Okay. And do we have a seconder? Oh, Councillor Nyman? Okay, so are we good to vote on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? That carries. So if we could vote on the, now vote on the main motion? As amended. All those in favor? One, two.
Yeah, you're still counting?
Yeah, trying to. Are you counting, madam? 1, 2. How many hands? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. That carries? Okay.
I have a recorded vote.
Thank you. Not now.
Yeah, you can. You can do it after the vote.
Yeah, can do a recorded vote. Councillor Nyman has asked for a recorded vote.
Councillor Nyman.
Opposed.
Councillor Prinzen.
Opposed.
Councillor Roberts.
In favor.
Councillor St. Jean.
Opposed to.
Councillor Bailey.
Opposed.
Councillor Bolek.
In favor?
Councillor Forrester.
In favor.
Councillor Harper.
In favor.
Councillor Margetson.
In favor of.
Councillor Maynard.
In favor of.
Councillor McMahon.
Opposed to.
Mayor Ferguson.
In favor.
That's 7-4, so it carries.
That carries. Okay, thank you. That moves us to item 9.5. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Harper, seconded by Councillor Prinzen.
Mr. Harper, Prinzen, motion that the supplemental staff report number 2 of Development Services dated November 12, 2019 regarding consent file numbers B48-19 and B49-19 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z48-19 be received.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, all those in favor? That carries. Moves us to item 9.6. Mover and a seconder for this, please, in Bloomfield, Hallowell. Councillor Prinzen?
Sure.
Seconded by Councillor Forrester.
It's a Prince and Forrester motion that the report of the Development Services dated September 18th, 2019 regarding consent file numbers B48-19, B49-19, and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z48-19 be received. That consent files number B48-19, B49-19, and Z49-19 Thomas McAvoy for lands located at 2018 County Road 1, described as Part Lot 4, Registrar's Compiled Plan 29, Part 3, 47R 4603, Ward of Bloomfield, Hallowell, be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1 through 12. That zoning amendment file number Z48-19 Thomas McAvoy for lands located at 2018 County Road number 1, described as Part Lot 4, Registrar's Compiled Plan 29, Part 3, 47R 4603, Ward of Bloomfield, Hallowell, be approved.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Your Worship. With regards to the water and well testing, the requirements, I'm trying to find which condition that is under this one. Is it number 7 as it was in the previous one? I believe that it's good for the goose is good for the gander, so we should be making an amendment to this one that is reflective of the previous consent that was just passed. And I would make that motion, if I could get a seconder.
Okay, so are there any comments from staff about this?
Your Worship, I believe the same wording could apply in this case.
Okay. From the previous application?
That's correct.
The one we just went through? Is that okay with that language is used? So that would substitute, where would that be inserted? 7?
Yes.
Okay.
Condition 7.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Madam Clerk, do you want to put this out?
Condition number 7. For consent file number B48-19 and B49-19, the landowner submits to the County of Prince Edward a plot plan to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services in consultation with Queenie Conservation, showing the location, plot plan of proposed septic systems and wells demonstrating separation clearances to the satisfaction of the CBO. And further, the owner shall report a well pump test of the new wells constructed on each of the severed lots created through B49-19 and B49-19, while monitoring the drawdown rate of the existing wells located at 2083 County Road Number 1, 2060 County Road Number 1, and 2080 County Road Number 1. The drawdown rate of the studied wells shall be demonstrated to have no adverse seasonal impacts to the satisfaction of the hydrogeologist of Queenie Conservation or other county-assigned hydrogeologist, and that the report include a section regarding consultation with the neighbors.
Councillor St. Jean, okay. Questions about the amendment? Councillor Maynard.
Just really briefly in the reading, and I think we pick up on line 9, 48 and 49. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? The motion, that carries. Now if we could vote on the main motion as amended. All those in favor? And that carries.
Can I get a recorded vote, please?
Sure. Councillor vote, or recorded vote, please, at the request of Councillor Prinson.
Recorded vote on the motion as amended. Councillor Prinzen.
Opposed to.
Councillor Roberts.
In favor.
Councillor St. Jean.
In favor.
Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
Councillor Bolick.
In favor.
Councillor Forrester.
In favor.
Councillor Harper.
In favor.
Councillor Margetson.
Favor of.
Councillor Maynard.
In favor of.
Councillor McMahon.
In favor of.
Councillor Nyman.
Opposed to.
Mayor Ferguson.
In favor.
That carries 10-2.
Okay, thank you. That moves us to item 9.7, supplemental report. If we could have a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Margetson, seconded by Councillor Harper.
This is Margetson Harper motion that the report of development services dated November 12, 2019 regarding consent file number B36-19 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z38-19 be received, and that condition 7 of consent file B36-19 be deleted in its entirety and replaced by the following. 7. The owner applies for and obtains an entrance permit and civic address and constructs the approved entrance to the retained lands.
Correct. Okay. All those in favor? That carries. We're about to see it again. This moves us to 9.8. If we could have a mover and a seconder for that, please. For this one, Councillor Margetson, seconded by Councillor Bailey.
Margetson Bailey motion that the report of development services dated October 16, 2019 regarding consent file number B36-19 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z38-19 be received. That consent file number B36-19, a Hillier Vineyard Inc. for lands located in part lot 16, 17, and 18, concession 2, parts 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 47R 8136, STPE 141545, except part 147R 8308, Ward 7, Hillier, be approved subject to the following conditions, 1 through 11, and that zoning amendment file number Z38-19 of Hillier Vineyard Inc. and for lands located in part lot 16, 17, and 18, concession 2, parts 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 47R 8136, STPE 141545, except part 147R 8308, Ward 7, Hillier, be approved.
Thank you. Question. So the foregoing clause from the last item in the agenda has basically been inserted into this this item, correct, Madam Clerk? Just for the sake of clarity.
Through you, Your Worship, through the supplemental report, once you approve the supplemental report, we will carry the motion as amended following that. Well, you already did approve the supplemental report, sorry. Yeah, so then it will be changed to what the supplemental report says.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that for everybody. Questions? Questions? Councillor Maynard?
I get that there's a supplemental report, but that then actually changes. We have to amend number 7 as it's read right now, correct?
So through you, Mayor Mayor Ferguson, so because you already approved the supplemental report, then we're going to carry the second clause as amended, but I won't need a separate motion because your former motion approved the amended clause.
So we did the amendment through
the supplemental, and now it's going to be carried as amended, but we don't need a formal amendment motion.
Okay. So if I can ask, and it's, if I may, through your worship.
Question, yeah.
So the retained lands will have the entrance, but the severed lands will not have an entrance?
Paul?
Through the chair, so the severed portion has an existing entrance currently. The retained portion does not.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, so it's the severed portion that has the former field entrance.
That is correct, yes.
I would just suggest that we indicate to our applicants that, pretty sure it's probably the only $80,000 field entrance in the county, and that it seems a little bit like they're asking for forgiveness instead of asking for permission for what the original intent was, but I guess that's it's kind of past, but it would have then been, even though it was a field entrance, it would have been constructed to the standards that would be required for a higher level entrance with culverts and
through the chair, the permit itself was granted with sketches that more or less indicate what's there existing today. But it was approved as a field entrance. It's not quite a commercial standard, but it is very close to a commercial standard.
Councillor Margetson.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak. I inspected the entrance, and I think it's got a over 70-foot long culvert. It's one of the widest filled entrances I've ever seen, so I think it's in good shape.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if we could have the vote, all those in favor? Oh, sorry. Councillor Nyman.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering about the drainage. Because I don't believe that we should, that parcel of land, we shouldn't be asking for that. So I don't know if it's too late to have clause 6 pulled out of there.
I didn't quite hear. Just could you repeat what you?
So the drainage plan, I don't believe that we really need. I don't understand, I guess, why we're asking for that, and I'm not sure if it's too late that I can, if I get a seconder, to pull that condition 6 from the motion.
So you're looking for a second?
I'll say that.
Okay. So you want to pull
number 6,
item 6,
the drainage.
And you've got Councillor Margetson as a seconder. Okay, Mr. McCauley.
Thank you, Worship. There's just one comment that I would make in looking at the site and the proposal here. It would appear to me that the severed lands are in fact being developed. And there was a pond built a number of years ago right adjacent to our roadway. My suggestion would be that you leave the drainage plan requirement on the severed lands, which are currently under active development. There is no other mechanism to check that box. And if council wants to waive the drainage, then for undeveloped lands, the retained lands, then you may choose to do so. But I would suggest there's a risk associated with taking it completely off the lands.
Okay. Questions? Councillor Margetson.
So through you to Mr. McCauley, if they don't develop the land within the 1 year to fulfill that condition, how are they going to know what the drainage plan will do?
Through you, through your worship, they only have to provide the plan. They don't have to actually do the development. But I think there's enough information from what I've seen in here where they obviously have some kind of plan that they're working to develop the main part. As you said, there's quite an extensive road being built and some other buildings on the property and other works undertaken. I think they can take a pretty good stab at the drainage plan for what it is they envision. And it's just the plan itself. We're not asking for the development to be undertaken or even alteration works. It's identify what may result from what you're doing. And there may be very minimal impact or none. But we have no full knowledge of what it is they're proposing to do on the site. And there's no follow-up. I would suggest there's no site plan control on this property either. So you have no ability to understand, or staff have no ability to understand what the impacts might be on Loyalist Parkway, for example.
Follow-up?
Yeah, I was just, so if they propose to build something in the middle of this 75-acre parcel, that would be registered on title?
It would be an identified building envelope that's registered on title that has known or identified drainage associated with it, or drainage onto the property from Loyalist Parkway, if that's the case.
But it would be registered?
Yes.
And would that constrain the site for further development?
I don't see it as constraining it, as long as they're, as long as they have an understanding of what it is they want to do. And if someone in the future comes in and they want to adjust it, well, there is a plan registered on title. They could go through the process of altering the plan, but it would be a check and balance process at that point. There is no other mechanism for the county to understand what's happening outside the immediate building envelope.
Well, then, in my opinion, I feel that's overly onerous, and I won't support it.
Okay. Other questions? So, Councilor Nyman,
Thank you. I just want to understand that process a bit more then. So if they hand a plan in, but they don't have to do anything, they just got you the plan, but for some reason, something comes up and they've changed, the plan has changed, they got to go through the whole thing again and hand in another drainage plan. Is that my understanding?
Through you, Your Worship, that would in essence be what it is, because by virtue of the agreement registered on title, the plan is registered on title.
I'm sticking to what I want there. Take that out.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to stay with taking the whole thing out.
Taking it out? Okay, and you're seconding that?
Sure.
Okay. Other questions? Councilor Princeton.
Oh, thanks. I just got a question back to the entrance permits, if I may. So back 10 years ago, when they applied for this entrance for the what is now going to be the severed land, made their $80,000 field entrance, they had to close 2 entrances now that are going to be back in the retained land. So what they're going to go back and do is push those entrances open, well, at least one of them, into the retained land, because so now they're still going to end up with their 2 entrances close to each other, because they have to put another entrance off 33 Loyalist Parkway to get into the retained lands, correct? So this goes back to my whole point of they applied for a field entrance. If I applied for a field entrance, it wouldn't be that quality of a field entrance. And I'm still sticking to I do not like where it is, and I don't like how it happened, so I won't support this at all.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Madam Clerk?
Just for clarity, so we're voting on the amendment, okay, first, and then we'll vote on it as a whole, as amended, and if should this amendment of removing condition 6 pass, then condition 7 becomes condition 6.
Correct.
Okay.
It's just removed from the original, right? Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment. Okay. All those in favor of
That's our amendment, correct?
that is your amendment.
Do you want me to?
Oh, it's deleted that.
Yeah. Councillor Nyman, seconded by Councillor Margetson. Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? I get 7.
Carries.
Okay, so now we're going to vote on the main motion. There was a question. Councillor St. Jean, on the main motion?
On the main motion, yes. It goes back to the entrance. I agree with Councillor Prinzen on this one. It was a farm entrance that's turned into this gorgeous entrance that Councillor Margerson said is great, but is it actually a commercial entrance? If it's being used for a commercial entrance, should it not be brought up to the standards of a commercial entrance, particularly given since it is on one of our major arterial roads? And I'm not sure through you, Mr. Mayor, who I should be asking that question of, but I'm going to throw it out there. Should it not be, should the applicant not be made to bring this up to a commercial entrance standard?
I think this is appropriate for the planning staff. Paul?
Through the chair,
Matt?
Our public works staff had done a site visit, and actually on 2 occasions they had done a site visit, one last week to confirm that the field entrance was constructed the way the permit was issued, and in both cases neither indicated that any upgrades to the entrance were required.
Okay. Follow up?
Yes, follow up. Thank you, through you, Your Worship. While you're stating that no upgrades are required, but is not the use of the property more generally commercial? Even though I know it's not zoned that way, but that's what it's being used for. Should it not be at that standard, especially since it's on one of our arterial roads? And given the traffic flow that's there, you know, I have serious safety concerns with, and not to mention the fact that previous owner went with a road entrance that, you know, I wish I could apply for lesser licenses and permits to do things that I want to do, and then just kind of go a little bit above and beyond and go, oh, I'm sorry. I don't agree with that. So I almost feel an amendment is required to make them bring the standard up to a commercial entrance, because it's going to be used as a commercial entrance, whether we like it or not. You know, it's obvious. It's a winery. You're going to have people coming and going there all the time, just like you would any other store. So I will make that motion to add that as a condition, that current entrance on Highway 33 be upgraded to a commercial entrance.
Mr. McCauley?
Your Worship, it appears we're re-arguing the prior item on the agenda, which was to take this property out and not require the entrance permit for it. And now we're revisiting that decision under the auspices of these conditions, which I think is not an appropriate step at this juncture. If I'm not mistaken, council can reconsider its position previously, still within the same meeting. I looked at the clerk, so you could revisit the previous item which took the severed lands and the issue of the entrance permit and remove that condition. So I think you run the risk of having 2 conflicting motions on the books if you bring this matter back into this file in this way.
Because it's already been agreed to, yeah.
But within the same motion, or same meeting, we can revote that previous motion.
Okay.
Correct, Madam Clerk?
So what is Councillor St. Jean, what is it you'd like to do here?
Well, through you, Your Worship, I'll take the advice of our acting CAO. Somehow I would like this to appropriately address the entrance that's there and making it to this putting it to the standard that it deserves. So however that needs to happen. Okay. And I'm not sure which clause needs to be changed, whether it's this one or the previous motion. I'm seeking advice, I guess, on this.
Okay. Madam
The best
Clerk.
way to do it.
Through your worship, as our acting CAO stated, it is possible to make a motion to reconsider a decision made tonight. So it would have to be made by the member who voted with the majority of the original motion. Or, in the opinion of the chair, there was a clear misunderstanding of the question and it requires a majority vote. So if you would like to reconsider the wording of condition number 7, which is now condition number 6, it have to be agreed to by the people who moved the original question number 7, the original supplemental report, and that was Councillor Margetson and Councillor Harper.
They're not going to agree to it.
So, okay.
Councillor Margetson, would you like to make a motion to reconsider your original motion of accepting the supplemental report and condition number 7?
So this is item 9.7.
Which was, right, no, I would not, because I'm confident that the entrance is satisfactory. I've developed about 15 wineries in the county, and that's one of the best entrances. And if they were required to do a traffic study, it's not a commercial zoning, it's rural. If this was a farm and you were building a dairy barn, I think we're just nitpicking here personally. So I think we should get on with it, and I don't want to withdraw that motion.
Okay. I tend to agree.
Councillor Harper?
I'm in favor of Councillor Margetson's point of view.
Any other comments or questions about this? Councillor Roberts?
What he said, I'm in favor of Bernie's.
I think we're getting kind of bogged down here. I tend to agree that we are kind of nitpicking over the type of entrance for this proposed development. So we are going to call a vote as amended with 6 removed.
With 6 removed and the wording of condition number 7, now number 6, to be what was on the supplemental report, which was the owner
Correct.
applies for and obtains an entrance permit and civic address and constructs the approved entrance to the retained lands.
Okay, everybody got that?
Recorded vote, please.
Okay. Okay.
Councillor St. Jean.
Opposed to.
Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
Councillor Bolick.
Opposed to.
Councillor Forrester.
In favor.
Councillor Harper.
In favor.
Councillor Margetson.
In favor.
Councillor Maynard.
Opposed to.
Councillor McMahon.
In favor.
Councillor Nyman.
In favor.
Councillor Prinzen.
Opposed.
Councillor Roberts.
In favor.
Mayor Ferguson.
In favor.
So that carries 8-4.
Okay, thank you. And moves us to item 9.9. Could have a mover and seconder for this, please? Councillor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Margetson.
This is a Bailey Margetson motion that the report of the Development Services dated November 12, 2019 regarding a request for exemption from part lot control be received, that the request to exempt part lot control from land zoned by 2003603 Ontario Corporation, described as Block 27, Plan 47 M18, Ward 1, Picton, be approved, and that a bylaw as listed on this agenda to exempt part lot control from lands described as Block 27, Plan 47 M18, Ward 1, Picton, more specifically identified as Parts 1 to 4 on Plan 47R-9021 in the County of Prince Edward be enacted.
Thank you. Questions? Anybody? All those in favor? And that carries. Moves us to item 9.10. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Nyman, Councillor Roberts.
It's a Nyman Roberts motion that the report of the Community Development Department dated November 12, 2019 regarding Connecting Links funding application be received, that the Council of the County of, or the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward supports and endorses the Connecting Links grant application to help make our roads and bridges safer while ensuring the county is open for business. That the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to execute on behalf of the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward a declaration which certifies that the application submitted meets the requirements of the Connecting Links program, and that the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward commits $324,400 from its budget toward the cost of this project.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we know under the surface that's going to get repaired or replaced, do we know about any infrastructure that's under that that potentially would need to be done or should be done at the same time? Hence adding to potentially to this cost?
Through the chair, there may be storm sewer and water main that would need to be looked at.
Okay. Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Your Worship. I got a couple of questions. So the Connecting Link, and I know that the Connecting Link funding we get there's pretty limited options kind of through Picton and through Bloomfield, but this is, in general, this is kind of an ongoing Connecting Link is like this money would likely be available next year and the following year and the year after that, barring any huge changes, right? Connecting Links is an ongoing funding source.
Your Worship, generally, yes. However, a couple of years ago, we did have a cancellation of the program.
Right.
And it was through the efforts of municipalities that came back. I would not want to suggest that it is without risk.
Right, that there may, yes, and I agree that there might be some modest risk, but any that we've seen have been very temporary or very short-lived suspensions of the program. I just direct people to page 164 under the analysis and comments. I mean, this would be $324,000 that is not budgeted from our capital reserves, and although, I mean, you know, as it says, this would be low on our ranking of roads to do, and that would be $324,000 that would be available to do much higher ranked roads, and would allow us the time to have a better roads needs study and to get our roads reserves into a place that we could more easily accommodate this $324,000, knowing that road is you know, driving it's in good shape. If we were going to do a section of Bloomfield, we might want to take some of that money and do the section that goes west on 33 in comparison. I mean, that road is in, you know, has held up well. I don't know, what is it, maybe about 15 years since it's been done. And if we're contemplating, you know, other works, I just think that for this year at least, that we should maintain that $324,000, not pull it out of the roads reserve. And I'm not sure, what that reserve, I think, is either depleted or does it say? Sorry, I wasn't sure if it give the fund. But anyways, I'm just suggesting that, and not to take away that the fact that at some point we will hopefully use Connecting Link funding to do that street. But I think at this point in time, and the state of our roads reserves, that we should hold off, because it's $324,000. I think that could be spent in for, you know, better purposes.
Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple questions, and I know we probably don't have the answer because we are really not in control of the highway. the life expectancy, how much life expectancy is left on that portion of the road, I guess, would be the one question. Do we have that answer or no?
Through your worship, not readily at hand. I'd have to do some digging to find out. But I believe it's probably not more than half through its life.
Okay. My other question is, I have a question and a comment. So, and I know we probably haven't seen no plans yet, but is it including like crosswalks and items such as that?
Your worship, no, it does not. Those are all excluded as connecting links. It is only the actual traveled road portion that's eligible. Other sidewalks, et cetera, are considered municipal works and 100% municipal dollars.
Okay.
And I believe on Thursday, there's a report coming forward on crosswalk in Bloomfield.
Yeah. Okay, so my comment is this. Although I agree the road is in pretty good shape, but I mean, for the cost $324,000 and the province is putting in $2.7 million, I mean, that's pretty good, you know. Yeah, I don't think you can sneeze at that. And the road would be, a new road, Robert, would be, life expectancy is 40 years, 30 years?
On a highway, I don't know that I would go that high, but it would be significantly longer than our normal roads, yes.
So, decades. Yeah.
So for $325,000 for, we'll say 25 to 30 years, they don't have to be touched. I guess that's a pretty good investment.
Councillor Margetson.
Thank you, Your Worship. This question through to Robert. If they continue the program, is it an annual application then? So if we didn't apply this year, we could apply next year if they continue the program?
Basically, it's a yearly program, but it's at their call.
And have we applied for Bloomfield before?
Yes, we did.
And we were unsuccessful.
I don't believe we were successful in the last one, and then prior to that we did, and there was some storm pond work that was done under the Connecting Link program as well as some road work. So I want to say 2010-ish, we did have some money. We did not succeed in the last round.
So just to follow up then, if this road is in fact half of its life expectancy, as you just said, which is generally seems to be our reaction to what we see out there, is it possible that we wouldn't be selected then? It's a competitive process anyway.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And all council's doing at this point is indicating it's an important one to us, but it's not a guarantee we'll get it.
Right.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor St. Jean.
Just to add, Your Worship, to add a little bit of history to it. The last time the road was rebuilt was in 2000. Phil, I believe you lived on Main Street at the time. So it is at a 20-year, it's 20 years old. And I wouldn't doubt that MTO has a 20-year cycle on a lot of their roads. At least that's what it appears to be what they're doing lately. And I have to agree, spend 10% to get 90%. I'll do that every day.
Okay.
So I will be supporting this. And it is a, you know, we may not get it, but at least we're showing the initiative and saying, yes, we would like to do this because it makes financial sense.
Okay, on that note, let's call the vote.
I'm sorry, I'd like my second. I just...
Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. Because this, it talks about drawing that money from the roads reserve, but it's not, or I'm not seeing it anyways, what that road reserve is at. And, well, staff maybe takes the staff at that. I'll say that this, we might better be served to apply for the funding to do the road when it's closer to the end of its life cycle, so that then we get the, we get those additional years from it. If we were to wait a few years, then we would extend the life of that useful life of that road for a longer period of time. but I don't, and I probably should have asked that question to staff previous, but do we even have, what do we even have in our roads reserve fund to take the 324,400 from?
I sense Mr. McCauley is looking to respond. So let's give him that opportunity. Question? Sure.
Well, just an observation. If I could get a 9-fold return from my investment advisor, I wouldn't tell any of you about it. But I would be very, very happy. So for a $300,000 investment to get a $3 million project, as others have said, is I think brilliant. And if we were to retain $300,000, we'd get probably 300 meters of something, which is not brilliant. So I think we should support it.
I would, Councillor Bolick, you haven't said anything.
I think the conundrum here is just because it's free money doesn't mean it's a good investment at this time. And it's still going to cost us $324,000 that we don't have. We haven't budgeted for this road. And there are a lot of roads in this county that are in piss poor shape that need to be worked on sooner than later. Certainly, this is an important link, but I don't think its time is now. We have to focus on what needs to be done now and put a plan together. I certainly applaud staff for looking for other money to do things, but I think this is the wrong choice at this time. And I would suggest that we look, as Councillor Maynard has suggested, at applying for this when it's closer to the end of life, which would give us a better chance of winning, and in the meantime, not allocate funds that we haven't reserved and put those funds to things that we know need fixing now.
Okay. Now, Mr. McCauley is still looking.
Your Worship, I was looking at your June 30th report that we recently received, and I don't see a summary of the reserve readily at hand, so I can undertake to have that circulated to council afterwards. But
okay.
At this point, your actions would be an expression of intent or interest, and I'd suggest that you could still pull the plug later, although it may look somewhat embarrassing. But if we really decided later on and we were successful and we didn't want to, we are not obligated to take it.
We could not take it.
We could decline later if we knew we had
okay, but if we don't get our name in there, there's no opportunity. Okay.
Absolutely.
Councillor Forrester.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, just looking, it's $324,000. It's only a 10% investment to get back 90, which you're right, it's hard to argue. But I do agree with the other councillors. It's still a 1% budget increase, or a little bit better than a 1% budget increase. And we look at this every year. I look at this, must be completed by the date, November 22nd. It seems like every time one of these comes forward, we better make a decision now because this is up next week. Sometimes I'd like to see the impact because we're talking about taking it out of reserve, what gets bumped down. And there are a lot of roads that will get put off. We made a nice little decision earlier on in the year with Clausen Road to come back and bit us in the butt. We're supposed to be looking at a plan, follow that plan without throwing things in at the last minute and say, yeah, this is such a great deal, we can't turn it down. But yes, we can turn it down, and I will not be voting on this today because of that.
Okay, Councillor Harper.
I find pay 10% and get 90 is very appealing, but my issue is I wonder if it's going to be, if we did it, is it going to be restricted to the 300? I mean, what is the condition of the infrastructure underneath? What other aspects would we need to do, like sidewalks and things like that? And could it very quickly escalate if we're going to do it and do it properly? Does it escalate up to $500,000? That would be my worry.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I think it's fair to say that the opportunity to apply is before us, and we do have the option of not taking advantage of it if that's what we want to do. But if we do not apply, we will not have that opportunity. And there may not be another opportunity in the future. So I'm in favor of at least putting our name out there and submitting the application. And if there's a change of heart later, then there's a change of heart and we can deal with it. So I'd like to call a vote on this, if I may. So all those in favor, please?
Sorry, since this is the meeting of
Recorded vote from Councillor Maynard.
Yeah.
Another recorded vote. Okay.
Councillor Maynard.
Opposed to.
Councillor McMahon.
In favor of.
Councillor Nyman.
In favor.
Councillor Prinzen.
In favor.
Councillor Roberts.
In favor.
Councillor St. Jean.
In favor of.
Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
Councillor Bullock.
Opposed to.
Councillor Forrester.
Opposed to.
Councillor Harper.
Opposed to.
Mayor Ferguson.
In favor.
That carries 7-4.
Thank you. So it moves us to 9 point.
I didn't get involved.
Okay. You didn't call Councillor Margetson?
Oh, sorry. Councillor Margetson.
Opposed to.
Okay, 7-5. That was tight.
Still carries. Okay, so moves us to 9.11. Got to have a mover and a seconder for this, please. Not everybody's hand at once, please.
Would you like me to do that for you?
Councillor Prinzen, seconded by
Councillor St. Jean.
Councillor St. Jean.
It's a Prinzen St. Jean motion that the report of the Community Development Department dated November 12, 2019 regarding the selection of a consultant to create a municipal cycling plan be received, that RFP number 2019-CDC-50 be awarded to WSP at a cost of $67,698 plus applicable taxes, and that council authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between the corporation of the County of Prince Edward and WSP to facilitate the municipal cycling plan and bring forward a bylaw to a subsequent meeting.
Questions? Councillor Maynard.
On that, on the budgeted money and what we probably will have in our roads and infrastructure reserves, how do we ensure that it truly is a county-wide, as it stated, a county-wide cycling plan, and how will they prioritize where we put our scarce resources? Because it talks about it being a county-wide, or that it has to be a county-wide cycling plan. How do we do that? How do we ensure that this plan does that and takes into consideration
That the consultant
our limited
considers
reserves?
that?
Yes.
Okay.
And what does that? And what does county-wide cycling plan mean?
Any insight from the acting director?
Through the chair, I would imagine that the call for the proposal was to ensure that it was county-wide. It needs to take into consideration more than the Millennium Trail. I know the report reflects that the balance of the other money was invested in Millennium Trail upgrades. The goal of this plan is to ensure that there's an identification of the roads that are appropriate for cycling throughout the entire county.
Okay.
So it's just identifying.
Generally, it's an identification tool.
Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I remember when this first came before us, and I didn't support it, and because to me, and I'm repeating myself, but the way it was explained to us was it's to get people to ride their bicycles or their bikes to work and whatever. The people that live out in the country aren't going to ride their bikes to work in the morning. They're just not going to do that and then have to ride home after working all day. Some people will, but everybody's not going to. And I didn't support it last time, and I'm not going to support it again because I just think that we have other things more important things that we should be looking at.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, this one is a tough one, but when I look at the amount of bicycle traffic in this county in the summertime and driving around East Lake and West Lake, we have to have a plan because there are going to be accidents, and based on nothing else but safety here, I'd like to find a way to channel these people and make it an appropriate way to get around the county. So I will support it because of that. It's a tough one to call, $70,000, but from a safety standpoint, I think it's necessary.
Anybody else? No, I will say that we are seeing more and more cycling events taking place in the county as well. So this will certainly help organizations and clubs and that sort of thing. And those events do, they will certainly take advantage of this, but they also contribute to the local economy. So if I could call a vote, please. Quickly.
Where's the money coming from? The 67,000?
Through the chair, there's up to $60,000 funding came from a grant, and the balance of the funding came from the studies reserve from 2018. It was pre-budgeted in 2018.
Okay, all those in favor? That carries. Move us to...
No, that was fine.
Who hasn't? Item 10, committee reports. Item 10.1. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Margetson, seconded by Councillor McMahon.
This is a Margetson-McMahon motion that the public report of the closed session from the council meeting held on October 22nd, 2019 be adopted as presented.
Questions? Comments? All those in favor? Carries. Item 10.2. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Roberts, Councillor McMahon.
This is a Roberts-McMahon motion that the public report of the closed session from the Committee of the Whole meeting held on October 24, 2019 be adopted as presented.
Questions? Comments? All those in favor? That carries. 10.3. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Bailey and Councillor Prinzen.
This is a Bailey-Prinzen motion that the report of the Committee of the Whole from the meeting held on October 24, 2019 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carries. And 10.4. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Bullock, you're moving, and Councillor St. Jean, seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a Bullock St. Jean motion that the public report of the closed session from the special council meeting held on November 4th, 2019 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Questions? All those in favor? That carries. Bylaws for consideration, 11.1. If we could have a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Forrester.
Madam Clerk, are these all straight, or do I have to do as amended anywhere in here?
Through your worship, I asked planning staff, and they confirmed that all of the amendments do not change the bylaws.
Thank you. Sorry, who's the seconder?
Councillor Forrester.
This is a Bailey-Forster motion that the following bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. 11.1.1, 11.1.2, 11.1.3, 11.1.4, 11.1.5, and 11.1.6.
Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. That moves us into a closed session. If I could have the mover and a seconder for that, please. Move us into closed section. Councillor Forrester, seconded by Councillor Bullock.
Forster, bulk motion, the council now move into closed session.
Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. 5 minutes? Okay. Sorry, Suzanne.
Microphone.
So this moves us to item 13, adoption of closed session minutes. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? For item 13.1, Councillor Margetson, seconded by Councillor McMahon.
Margetson, McMahon, motion that the council minutes from the closed session meeting held October 22nd, 2019 be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carries. 13.2, mover and a seconder, Councillor Nyman, seconded by Councillor McMahon.
It's a Nyman McMahon motion that the Committee of the Whole minutes from the closed session meeting held October 24th, 2019 be adopted.
All those in favor? That carries. Motions arising from closed session, we have one. We need a mover and a seconder to... Councillor Nyman, seconded by Councillor McNaughton.
And the clerk will read it for me.
Through your worship, that council appoint Alex Curry and John McLeish as voting members of the Sophiasburg Recreation Committee for the term of council or until reappointed.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Moves us to the confirmatory bylaw. Mover and a seconder for that, please. Let's try this side of the table. Councillor St. Jean. And Councillor Bullock.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's the St. Jean Bullock motion that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. A bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward at the meeting held on November the 12th, 2019.
Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. And adjournment. Motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Harper, seconded by Councillor Forster.
Harper, Forster, motion that this meeting now adjourn at 10:40 p.m.
Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. Thanks a lot, everybody. I know it was a slog.
Yeah, thank you.